Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the UES Phoenix watching the stars through the main window. The deep space exploration ship had been traveling for 3 weeks since leaving Earth's outer colonies. Jake was tired but happy because they were heading home after a successful mission mapping. New Star Systems. Commander Lisa Hayes walked up to him holding a data pad. She looked worried about something. Lisa was the ship's tactical officer, and she rarely showed concern unless something was really wrong. She handed Jake the pad and pointed to strange readings on the screen. "Captain, we got a message from the Galactic Council about an hour ago," Lisa said. "But something feels off about it. The encryption patterns don't match what we've seen before." From them, Jake read the message on the pad. The Council was inviting humanity to join their peaceful alliance. They wanted human representatives to come to their capital world, Xanthara Prime, for a grand ceremony. The message said it would be a great honor for the human race and that many species would be there to welcome Earth's children into the galactic community. "This sounds like good news, Lisa," Jake said. "Why do you look so worried about it?" Lisa pointed to technical data at the bottom of the pad. "The signal routing is different, Captain. Usually Council messages come through the standard diplomatic channels. This one bounced through at least 6 different relay stations before reaching us. That's not normal for official communications." Dr. Kevin Brooks walked onto the bridge carrying his own data pad. Kevin was the ship's expert on alien languages and cultures. He had been studying everything the Council had sent to humanity for the past 2 years. His face showed the same worried expression as Lisa's. "Captain, I need to show you something important," Kevin said. "I've been analyzing Council communications for months, and I found some disturbing patterns in their language structure." Jake motioned for both officers to sit down at the main conference table. Other bridge crew members continued their work, but Jake could tell they were listening. News about the Council always interested everyone on human ships. Kevin activated his pad and showed them complex linguistic charts. "The Council language has something called contextual markers," he explained. "These are small words that completely change the meaning of sentences. We've been translating their messages based on surface meanings but ignoring these deeper indicators." "What does that mean exactly?" Jake asked. "It means they've been lying to us, Captain," Kevin said quietly. "What we think are friendly invitations might actually be something very different. I need more time to analyze this properly, but early results are troubling." Chief Engineer Amy Carter's voice came over the ship's communication system. "Captain Morrison, please come to engineering immediately. We have a situation down here." Jake left Lisa and Kevin on the bridge and took the elevator down to the engineering section. Amy was standing next to a large communication array that was normally used for routine maintenance reports. She looked excited and frightened at the same time. "Captain, I was running diagnostics on our long-range receivers when I picked up something strange," Amy said. "It's an unencrypted transmission from Council space. They probably don't know we can intercept it at this distance." Amy played the recording through the ship's speakers. The voices were clearly aliens speaking in their own language without translation. Jake couldn't understand the words, but the tone sounded casual, like people having a normal conversation. "I ran it through our translation software," Amy continued. "Captain, you need to hear what they're actually saying about us." She pressed another button, and the computer's voice began translating the alien conversation. Jake's blood went cold as he listened to the words. "The primitive humans fell for our deception perfectly," one alien voice said. "Their emotional reactions to our false friendship make them easy to manipulate. Once we have their fleet gathered at Xanthara Prime, we can destroy them all at once." Another alien voice replied, "Have you confirmed their military capabilities are as weak as our scouts reported?" These creatures seem to rely heavily on hope and trust rather than proper defensive planning. "Yes, their ships are lightly armed and their crews lack proper military discipline," the first voice answered. "They actually believe we want them as equals in our alliance. The mining rights to their worlds will make us wealthy beyond measure once we reduce their population to manageable levels." Jake felt sick listening to the conversation. Everything humanity believed about the Council was wrong. The friendship was fake. The alliance was a trap. The ceremony was going to be a massacre. Amy stopped the recording and looked at Jake with wide eyes. Captain, there's more. They've been studying our technology and military strength through all these peaceful exchanges. They think they know everything about our capabilities. Jake activated his personal communicator and called the bridge. Lisa, get me a secure channel to Earth Command immediately. Priority Alpha classification? Yes, sir, Lisa's voice came back. Captain, should I be worried about something? Yes, Lisa, you should be very worried, Jake replied. Kevin was right about the language markers. The Council has been deceiving us from the beginning. Jake returned to the bridge where Kevin was still working on his linguistic analysis. The doctor looked up as Jake approached, and his expression showed he had discovered more bad news. Captain, I've finished analyzing their communication patterns, Kevin said. Every single message the Council sent to humanity contains deception markers. The invitation to Xanthara Prime is actually a trap designed to eliminate our entire space fleet in one attack. Jake sat down heavily in his command chair. 100 human ships were already traveling towards Xanthara Prime for the ceremony. Thousands of people, including Earth's best diplomats and military officers, were walking straight into an alien ambush. Lisa, how long until we can reach Earth Command with a priority message? Jake asked. About 6 hours, Captain, Lisa replied. But the Council ships heading to the ceremony will arrive at Xanthara Prime in less than 48 hours. Jake stared at the starfield ahead of them. Humanity was about to learn a hard lesson about trusting aliens who spoke of peace while planning war. The question now was whether Earth could warn their people in time, and whether the human fleet could survive what was coming. Admiral Dan Rodriguez stood on the command deck of the UES Liberty, watching Xanthara Prime grow larger on the main screen. The massive planet looked beautiful with its blue oceans and green continents. Hundreds of alien ships floated in orbit around the world, creating a spectacular light show with their different designs and colors. Admiral, we're receiving docking instructions from Xanthara Traffic Control, reported Communications Officer Pete Wilson. They want us to move our fleet into a tight formation near their orbital stations. Don nodded and gave the order. The human fleet of 100 ships began moving into the positions the aliens had requested. Everything seemed normal and peaceful, just as the Council had promised. Don felt proud to be leading humanity's first major diplomatic mission to the galactic community. Colonel Matt Thompson walked onto the command deck wearing his dress uniform. Matt commanded the Marine security detail that would protect the human diplomats during the ceremony. His men were excited about meeting alien cultures and seeing the advanced technology of the Council worlds. Admiral, the diplomatic team is ready to transfer to the Xanthara station, Matt reported. Dr. Susan Palmer wants to review the ceremony schedule one more time before we dock. Dr. Palmer was Earth's top expert on alien politics, and she had been chosen to lead the human delegation. She had studied every piece of information about the Council for months, preparing for this moment. Don trusted her judgment completely. Tell Dr. Palmer we'll dock in 30 minutes, Don said. Make sure your Marines understand this is a peaceful mission. We want to make a good impression on our new allies. Suddenly, every screen on the Liberty went dark. Then a new image appeared showing a large reptilian creature sitting on what looked like a throne. The being had cold yellow eyes and scales that reflected the light from jeweled decorations around the room. Greetings, humans, the creature spoke in perfect English. I am Supreme Chancellor Vexstar, leader of the Galactic Council. Your species has been invited here today not for celebration but for surrender. Don felt his stomach drop as he realized what was happening. Around the human fleet, massive Council warships began appearing from behind asteroids and space stations. The aliens had been hiding a huge military force waiting for the humans to arrive. You have been studying our peaceful transmissions for years, believing we wished friendship, Vexstar continued. Your primitive minds could not understand the true meaning of our communications. We have been preparing to claim your worlds and reduce your population to useful numbers. On the tactical display, Lieutenant Carol Price counted over 3,000 alien warships now surrounding the human fleet. The Council ships were enormous compared to human vessels, and their weapons were already charging for battle. "Admiral, they're jamming our communications," Pete reported frantically. "I can't reach any of our ships or send messages back to Earth." Matt grabbed Dan's arm and pointed at the screen. "Sir, alien boarding parties are launching from their ships. They're heading straight for our fleet." Don watched in horror as hundreds of small alien craft moved toward the human ships. The Council had planned this ambush perfectly. They had studied human technology and believed they could capture the entire fleet without major losses. "All ships. Defensive positions," Don ordered, even though he knew the communications were jammed. "Prepare for boarding actions." Dr. Palmer ran onto the command deck looking pale but determined. "Admiral, I suspected something like this might happen," she said. "I convinced you to bring only our older ships to this ceremony for a reason." Dan stared at her in surprise. "What do you mean, Susan?" "I've been analyzing Council behavior patterns." "For months," she explained. "Their diplomatic responses were too perfect and too eager. Real allies don't push so hard for meetings on their territory. I thought we might be walking into a trap." The first alien boarding pod slammed into the Liberty's hull. Alarms began sounding throughout the ship as Council forces tried to cut through the outer doors. Matt and his Marines ran toward the docking bays to meet the invaders. "Admiral, the good news is our newest ships with the best weapons are still back in human space," Susan continued. "The bad news is we're about to find out how ruthless these aliens really are." Captain Rick Barnes' voice came over the ship's internal communication system. Rick commanded the UES Defiant, one of the escort ships in the human fleet. "Admiral, I'm going to try sending a burst transmission back to Earth before they cut through our hull. If we don't make it home, someone needs to know what really happened here." Don felt proud of his officers even in this desperate situation. Human crews were trained to sacrifice themselves if it meant protecting Earth and the colonies. The Council clearly didn't understand this aspect of human nature. Explosions echoed through the Liberty as alien forces broke through the outer hull. Matt's voice came over the comm system, reporting heavy fighting in the lower decks. The aliens were using advanced weapons that cut through human armor easily. "Admiral, their boarding parties are carrying some kind of neural disruptor weapons," Matt reported between bursts of gunfire. "They're trying to capture us alive rather than kill us. I think they want prisoners for interrogation." Dr. Palmer activated her personal datapad and began downloading files. "Admiral, I'm copying everything we know about human military capabilities and sending it to the Marine units. If the Council wants to study us, they're going to learn things they won't like." Don realized what Susan was planning. The Council thought they were capturing weak explorers who would reveal Earth secrets under pressure. Instead, they were about to interrogate humans who knew they were already dead and had nothing left to lose. "All remaining crew prepare for capture," Don ordered. "Remember your training and remember what these aliens plan to do to our families back home." The bridge doors exploded inward as Council soldiers poured into the command center. The alien warriors were tall and heavily armored, with weapons that hummed with energy. They moved efficiently like they had done this many times before with other species. Don raised his hands in surrender but kept his eyes on Vextar's image on the screen. The Supreme Chancellor looked satisfied as he watched human ships being captured one by one across the fleet. "Your resistance is over, humans," Vextar announced. "Your ships will be studied and your crews will provide information about your military capabilities. Within 1 year, Council forces will occupy your worlds and your people will serve our empire." Don smiled grimly as the aliens placed restraints on his hands. Vextar was making the same mistake that many Earth predators had made throughout history. He was confusing the absence of immediate violence with the absence of capacity for violence. The Council was about to learn that humans had conquered their home planet, not because they were the strongest or fastest species, but because they were the most persistent and creative killers in Earth's long evolutionary history. This ambush was just the beginning of their education. General Patricia Wells stood in the command center deep beneath Earth's surface watching emergency reports flood in from across human space. The message from Captain Jake Morrison had reached Earth just hours ago, bringing news of the Council's betrayal and the trap at Xanthara Prime. General, all military commanders are standing by for orders, reported Colonel Andy Foster. Every ship captain and base commander wants to know how we're responding to this attack. Patricia activated the main display screen showing the locations of human ships throughout known space. What the Council saw as a scattered collection of exploration and cargo vessels was actually something very different. Every human ship had been designed with one secret purpose hidden beneath its peaceful exterior. Activate Protocol 7, Patricia ordered. Send the authorization codes to every human vessel and military installation. It's time to show these aliens what we're really capable of. Across human space, the Protocol 7 activation codes reached ships that had been pretending to be harmless for years. Cargo haulers began extending hidden weapon arrays from their hulls. Scientific research vessels deployed armor plating that had been disguised as equipment storage. Mining ships revealed that their industrial tools could easily become weapons. Of war. Captain Steve Morgan received the activation codes aboard his ship, the UES Hunter, positioned near the outer colonies. Steve had been waiting for this moment since the day his ship was commissioned. The Hunter looked like a simple freight transport, but it was actually humanity's most advanced stealth warship. All hands prepare for combat operations, Steve announced, over the ship's communication system. The aliens think they know what we are, but they're about to get a very unpleasant surprise. The Hunter's outer hull began shifting as hidden panels slid away, revealing sleek weapon systems and advanced sensors. Within minutes, the peaceful cargo ship had transformed into a deadly predator designed specifically for hunting alien vessels. Steve activated his tactical display and studied the positions of Council ships in nearby systems. The aliens had spread, their forces thin, believing they only needed to guard against primitive human technology. They were about to learn why that was a fatal mistake. Helm set course for the Kepler system, Steve ordered. The Council has a supply depot there with minimal defenses. We're going to teach them about human warfare. Meanwhile, throughout Council space, alien commanders began receiving disturbing reports from their scout ships. Human vessels that had been tracked as harmless merchants were suddenly appearing on sensors as heavily armed warships. The transformation was happening simultaneously across dozens of star systems. Commander Julie Foster led a squadron of converted mining ships toward a Council military outpost. Julie had spent years perfecting tactics that no alien species had ever encountered. While other races fought with honor and predictable strategies, humans used deception and psychological warfare. All ships remember the plan, Julie broadcast to her squadron. We're not trying to win a fair fight, we're trying to destroy their ability to think clearly. Make them afraid of every shadow and every asteroid. Julie's ships approached the Council outpost from multiple directions using the system's asteroid field for cover. The alien defenders expected a direct assault like other species would attempt. Instead, the human ships began launching mining charges at asteroid sending, massive rocks flying toward the station at high speed. The Council commander tried to shoot down the incoming asteroids, but there were too many coming from too many directions. When the rocks impacted the station's shields, the explosions created sensor interference that hid the real human attack coming from another angle. Now, Julie ordered, and her ships emerged from the asteroid field firing weapons that had been designed to look like industrial tools. Council vessels that expected energy beams instead faced streams of molten metal and explosive mining charges. Back on Earth, Dr. Kevin Brooks was working frantically to decode more Council communications. His discovery about their language deception had opened new possibilities for understanding alien weaknesses. Kevin had found something that could change the entire war. General Wells, I need to speak with you immediately, Kevin said as he burst into the command center. I've discovered a critical vulnerability in Council biology. Patricia looked up from tactical reports showing early human victories across multiple systems. What kind of vulnerability, Kevin? Kevin activated a holographic display showing alien neural pathways. Their central nervous systems are extremely sensitive to specific electromagnetic frequencies. We can generate these frequencies using modified communication equipment. Are you saying we can disable their crews without destroying their ships? Patricia asked. Better than that, General, Kevin replied excitedly. We can cause severe disorientation and panic reactions that last for hours. Imagine alien crews that can't think clearly or coordinate their actions while our ships attack them. Patricia immediately understood the implications. Human ships could broadcast these frequencies during battle, making Council vessels easy targets. More importantly, the psychological impact would be devastating to alien morale when word spread about this new weapon. Captain Tony Lewis was already putting similar tactics to use in the Vega system. Tony commanded a group of ships that had been converted from passenger transports into fast attack vessels. His specialty was hit-and-run tactics that left Council forces confused and demoralized. Target their communication arrays first, Tony ordered his squadron. I want these aliens flying blind and unable to coordinate with their fleet commanders. Tony's ships swept through the Council formation like hunting wolves, separating individual vessels from the main group. Human weapons designed for mining and construction work proved incredibly effective at tearing apart alien HUL armor and disabling critical systems. The Council ships tried to respond with their standard battle formations, but human captains refused to follow any predictable patterns. They used ramming attacks, suicide runs, and coordinated strikes that ignored traditional rules of space combat. Captain Amy Carter led the most daring attack of the early war when she deliberately overloaded her ship's reactor and rammed it into a Council battle cruiser. The explosion destroyed both vessels but also eliminated the alien flagship coordinating defenses for an entire star system. This is for Admiral Rodriguez and everyone at Xanthara Prime, Amy broadcast as her ship began its final approach. Council commanders listening to human communications began to understand they were fighting an enemy that valued victory over survival. News of the early human victories spread quickly through both human and Council space. Alien species that had joined the Council for protection began questioning whether they had chosen the winning side. Several minor races sent secret messages to human commanders asking about surrender terms. General Wells read these messages with satisfaction. The Council had made a fundamental error in their understanding of human nature. They had mistaken caution for weakness and diplomacy for submission. Now they faced a species that approached warfare with the same intensity they had once applied to exploration and scientific discovery. Colonel Foster, send a message to all Council forces in human space, Patricia ordered. Tell them they have 24 hours to withdraw from our territory or face complete destruction. What if they don't withdraw, General? Andy asked. Patricia smiled grimly as she watched reports of more human victories appearing on the tactical display. Then they'll learn why we dominated our home planet despite being smaller and weaker than most of Earth's predators. We're very good at killing things that threaten our families. Admiral Carol Price stood on the bridge of the UES Vengeance watching Council ships flee from yet another human victory. 6 months had passed since the betrayal at Xanthara Prime, and the war had turned completely in humanity's favor. What started as an alien ambush had become a systematic hunt across the galaxy. Admiral of the Council fleet in this system is requesting permission to surrender, reported Captain Bill Hayes from his escort ship. That's the third Council force this week that's tried to give up rather than fight us. Carol studied the tactical display showing scattered alien ships trying to escape toward the edge of the star system. The once mighty Council Navy was broken and demoralized. Their commanders had learned to fear human tactics that ignored every rule of civilized warfare. Deny their surrender request, Carol ordered coldly. The Council wanted to reduce our population to manageable levels. Now they can experience what that feels like. The human fleet moved forward in perfect coordination, hunting down the fleeing alien vessels. Carol's ships had been designed specifically for this kind of pursuit, combining speed and firepower in ways that terrified Council crews who valued their lives above military duty. Captain, Tony Lewis led his squadron of hunter ships through the asteroid field where Council forces were trying to hide. Tony had become a legend among human crews for his ability to find and destroy alien vessels no matter where they tried to run. "Remember what they did to our people at Xanthara Prime," Tony broadcast to his captains. "No mercy and no survivors. Unless they have information we can use." Tony's ships moved through the asteroids like sharks hunting fish. The sleek human vessels used their advanced sensors to track Council ships that thought they were safely hidden. When the aliens tried to flee, Tony's hunters pursued them with relentless efficiency. The psychological impact on Council forces had become devastating. Species that had joined the Alliance for protection were abandoning their posts and fleeing toward the galactic rim. Minor races were sending desperate messages to human commanders, begging for mercy and offering to change sides. Dr. Susan Palmer worked in her laboratory aboard the command ship, developing new strategies for breaking alien morale. Susan had survived the capture at Xanthara Prime by convincing her Council interrogators that she was just a harmless scientist. Instead, she had been gathering intelligence about alien psychology and military doctrine. "Admiral, I've completed my analysis of Council command structure," Susan reported to Carol. "Their entire military system depends on centralized leadership and rigid hierarchy. If we eliminate their senior commanders, the remaining forces will collapse into chaos." Carol reviewed Susan's report with interest. Human military doctrine emphasized independent thinking and flexible tactics, but alien forces apparently couldn't function without constant orders from above. This weakness could be exploited to accelerate the Council's defeat. "Dr. Palmer, prepare a list of high-value targets in Council leadership," Carol ordered. "We're going to cut the head off this snake and watch the body die." Meanwhile, deep in Council space, Captain Rick Barnes was leading the most daring human operation of the war. Rick had escaped from Xanthara Prime during the initial confusion and spent months gathering intelligence about alien military installations and government facilities. "All teams remember, this is a precision strike," Rick broadcast to his Special Forces units. "We want their leadership alive for interrogation, but their command centers need to be completely destroyed." Rick's ships used experimental jump drives to appear directly in the heart of Council territory. The aliens had never seen this technology before, and their defensive systems were designed to stop attacks coming from the edges of star systems, not from inside their own space. The human strike force hit 12 Council command centers simultaneously, using weapons that had been developed from mining and construction equipment. Industrial plasma cutters proved incredibly effective at penetrating alien bunkers and military installations. Council forces tried to respond, but their communication networks had been compromised by human cyber warfare specialists. Dr. Kevin Brooks had discovered how to use the aliens' own language structure against them, creating false orders that sent Council ships to wrong locations or caused them to attack each other. "Admiral, we're receiving surrender offers from the Zephyrian Federation and the Altair Commerce Guild," reported Communications Officer Pete Wilson. "Both species want to negotiate separate peace treaties with humanity." Carol considered the offers carefully. These alien races had joined the Council willingly and participated in the planned genocide of humanity. However, they might have valuable information about remaining Council forces and hidden military assets. "Tell them we'll accept their surrender under the following terms," Carol replied. "Complete demilitarization, immediate withdrawal from all human territories, and full disclosure of Council military capabilities. Any attempt to deceive us will result in the same fate as their former masters." The speed of Council collapse had surprised even human military planners. General Patricia Wells had expected a long, difficult war lasting several years. Instead, alien resistance was crumbling faster than human forces could advance to accept surrenders. Captain Steve Morgan received new orders while hunting Council remnants in the outer spiral. Steve's ship, the Hunter, had become the most feared vessel in human space, with Council crews abandoning their ships rather than face him in battle. "Steve, we need you to investigate reports of a secret Council facility in the Omega Nebula," came Admiral Price's transmission. "Intelligence suggests they're developing some kind of superweapon as a last resort." Steve set course for the nebula, knowing that desperate enemies were often the most dangerous. The council leadership that remained was probably planning something drastic to reverse their losses. Human victory was nearly complete, but the final battles might be the most costly. "All crew prepare for extended operations," Steve announced. "If the Council has a secret weapon, we're going to find it and destroy it before they can use it against Earth or the colonies." As Steve's ship entered the nebula, his sensors detected massive energy signatures deep within the gas clouds. Whatever the Council was building, it required enormous amounts of power. Steve transmitted the coordinates back to Human Command and prepared for what might be his most dangerous mission yet. The war that had started with Council deception and betrayal was approaching its final phase. Humanity had proven that peaceful explorers could become efficient killers when their families were threatened. The galaxy would never again mistake human restraint for weakness or human diplomacy for submission. Admiral Carroll Price looked at the star charts showing human forces advancing on all fronts. Soon, the Council's capital at Zenthara Prime would be within range of human weapons. The aliens who had planned to make humanity extinct were about to learn what extinction really meant. "All fleet commanders prepare for the final assault," Carroll transmitted across human space. "The Council wanted to reduce our population to manageable levels. It's time to show them what manageable levels really look like." Admiral Jake Morrison stood on the command deck of the U's Phoenix looking at Zenthara Prime through the main view screen. The planet that had once seemed beautiful and welcoming now appeared as the heart of an empire that had tried to destroy humanity. Around the world floated the remnants of the once mighty Council fleet preparing for their final battle. "Admiral, we're detecting over 800 Council ships in defensive positions around the planet," reported Captain Lisa Hayes from the tactical station. "They've concentrated everything they have left for this last stand." Jake studied the enemy formations with cold satisfaction. The Council forces looked impressive, but human intelligence knew they were mostly older ships with demoralized crews. The alien military that had seemed so powerful a year ago was now a broken shadow of its former strength. "Communications open a channel to the entire system," Jake ordered. "I want everyone to hear what I'm about to say." The main screen changed to show Jake's image being broadcast throughout Zenthara system. On the planet below and aboard Council ships, alien leaders watched as the human admiral prepared to deliver his ultimatum. "I am Admiral Morrison of the Human Space Forces," Jake began in a calm voice. "Supreme Chancellor Vextar and the Galactic Council have 1 hour to surrender unconditionally and release all human prisoners. After that, Zenthara Prime becomes a tomb world and every Council ship in this system will be destroyed." On the planet's surface, Vextar watched the human transmission from his command bunker. The reptilian leader still couldn't understand how his perfect plan had gone so wrong. The Council had superior numbers, better technology, and centuries of military experience, yet they were losing to a species they had dismissed as primitive. "Supreme Chancellor, the human admiral must be bluffing," reported General Kraft, the Council's top military commander. "They would never sacrifice their own people just to achieve victory. No civilized species would make such a choice." Vextar wanted to believe his general was right, but human actions throughout the war suggested otherwise. These creatures seemed willing to die for strategic advantages in ways that no other species could understand or predict. Aboard the captured human ships orbiting Zenthara Prime, Admiral Don Rodriguez and the surviving prisoners from the original diplomatic mission were planning their own final act of defiance. Don had spent months gathering intelligence about Council military installations and government facilities. "All units remember the plan," Don whispered to his fellow prisoners during their daily exercise period. "When the attack begins, we take control of the communication center and transmit everything we've learned about Council defensive positions." Colonel Matt Thompson nodded grimly from across the prisoner compound. Matt and his Marines had been planning this breakout for weeks, knowing they probably wouldn't survive, but determined to help the rescue fleet succeed. "The Council still doesn't understand what they're dealing with," Matt said quietly. "They think we're going to negotiate like civilized people. They're about to learn that humans can be very uncivilized when our families are threatened." Back on the Phoenix, Jake watched the countdown timer approach 0. No response had come from Council leadership, and human sensors detected increased activity around military installations on the planet below. The aliens were preparing to fight rather than surrender. "Admiral, the Council fleet is moving into attack formation," reported Captain Tony Lewis from his ship, the Hunter. "They're going to try one last assault before we can begin orbital bombardment." Jake smiled coldly as he watched the alien ships advance toward the human fleet. The Council commanders still believed they could win through traditional space combat tactics. They had learned nothing from their defeats throughout the war. "All ships engage at will," Jake ordered. "Show them what happens when you threaten human children." The battle for Xanthara Prime began with devastating human precision. Ships that had once pretended to be peaceful explorers revealed their true nature as efficient killing machines. Council vessels that expected honorable combat instead faced psychological warfare and ruthless efficiency that broke their formations. Within minutes, Captain Steve Morgan led his squadron in a coordinated attack that eliminated the Council command ship before the aliens could organize their defense. Human ships used tactics that ignored traditional rules of space warfare, including ramming attacks and suicide. Runs that terrified alien crews on the planet below. Vexstar watched his fleet being systematically destroyed by forces he still couldn't fully comprehend. The humans fought with an intensity that seemed impossible for rational beings. They treated warfare as both science and art, combining technical precision with creative brutality. "Supreme Chancellor, we must evacuate immediately," General Krath reported frantically. "The human fleet has broken through our defenses and orbital bombardment will begin within minutes." Vexstar stared at the tactical display showing human ships positioning themselves above major population centers. "How can they be so ruthless?" he asked in disbelief. "They're willing to kill millions of civilians just to ensure victory." The answer came as the first human bombardment began falling on Council military installations. The attacks were precisely targeted to eliminate defensive capabilities while avoiding unnecessary civilian casualties. However, the message was clear that humans would do whatever was necessary to win. Admiral Rodriguez and his prisoners chose that moment to begin their uprising. Human Marines who had been pretending to be broken captives suddenly revealed hidden weapons and began fighting their way toward the communication center. "For Earth and the colonies," Matt Thompson shouted as he led the charge against surprised Council guards. The alien soldiers had never seen humans fight with such desperate fury, and they broke ranks as the prisoners overwhelmed their positions. Rodriguez reached the communication array and began transmitting the location of every Council installation he had identified during months of captivity. The intelligence data reached the human fleet just as they were planning their final assault on the planet. "Admiral, we're receiving detailed target information from the surface," reported Dr. Kevin Brooks from his intelligence station. "Admiral Rodriguez and his people are giving us everything they know about Council defensive positions." Jake felt pride and sadness as he realized what the prisoners were doing. They knew they wouldn't survive the final battle, but they were ensuring that human victory would be complete and decisive. The orbital bombardment of Xanthara Prime lasted exactly 6 hours. Human forces used weapons designed for mining and construction to systematically eliminate every Council military installation, government facility, and industrial complex on the planet. The precision of the attack left civilian areas mostly intact, but destroyed the Council's ability to function as a government. When the bombardment ended, Jake ordered landing forces to secure the planet and capture any surviving Council leadership. The war that had begun with alien deception and betrayal was finally over with complete human victory. Supreme Chancellor Vexstar was found hiding in a deep bunker beneath the capital city. The reptilian leader who had planned genocide against humanity was now a broken creature begging for mercy from the species he had tried to destroy. "How could you be so efficient at killing?" Vexstar asked Jake when they met in the ruins of the Council chambers. "We studied your technology and your ships, but we never understood your true nature." Jake looked at the defeated alien leader with cold eyes. "You studied our tools, but you should have studied our history," he replied. We are the species that drove our planet's apex predators to extinction just because they competed with us for resources. We explored spacefully because we chose to, not because we had to. The establishment of human control over former Council territories proceeded swiftly. Surviving alien species were not exterminated or enslaved, but they served humanity, now having learned that the quiet explorers they had once dismissed were actually the galaxy's most dangerous predators. Jake stood in the council chambers that now served as humanity's galactic headquarters, reading reports from across known space. New alien species were being contacted by human diplomats, who delivered the same message the council had once given: invitations to join a peaceful alliance. The difference was that these new aliens could see human warships waiting just outside their sensor range, and they understood exactly what kind of peace humanity offered. They had heard the stories of what happened to species that threatened human families, and they knew that cooperation was their only option for survival. Humanity's expansion into the galaxy continued. But now every intelligent species understood the truth. When humans said they came in peace, it wasn't because they couldn't make war. It was because they chose not to, and that choice could be revoked at any time if their families were threatened.